That's a beautiful garden with a beautiful story as well. Right now we're going to be joined by David Meeker, who's the nursery manager at Gardens, one of the finest nurseries, not just in Austin, but in the state of Texas, if not the region. It's great to have you on Central Texas Gardener, David. We're going to be talking about plants for winter interest and structure, and you've brought a host of things that I've never seen before. But of course, that's what Gardens does, isn't it?
Yep, I sure do.
You bring in and introduce to us so many different plant species through your nursery, and you have brought with you today some really fascinating looking things, and most all these are going to be winter hardy, right?
Yeah, with a few exceptions. Most of them are hardy to the mid or low to mid 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll highlight all the different cultural characteristics of these plants as we go through, so people can make their own determination if they're going to work for them. But we're going to start with, we have a group of plants over here that are yews, which is one of the most versatile, I love yews. You see them in Europe, you see them in the Northeast all the time, but I think we're just beginning to incorporate them in our gardens here in Texas.
Yeah, we've seen a resurgence of yews lately, and some of these we've carried for a long time, and they're very useful evergreens, especially in shadier areas. So
we're going to start by looking at a dwarf variety, and this is Pringle's dwarf. Tell us about how large this gets and the cultural requirements of this little plant.
Yeah, this is a Japanese yew. It's in the Podocarpus genus, which typically those get much bigger. This is a new one that's going to stay 3 to 4 feet, so very small. Would make an excellent container specimen, but it also would do well in a shady garden. That one particularly could take more sun, so it could be partial sun, morning sun, or filtered afternoon sun. It's a little bit more versatile.
And what's the soil conditions for this plant family as a group, would you say?
As a group, they need typically a richer soil than, say, our native soil, but it's not really very difficult. It's a one-time sort of adding organic matter when you plant, making sure that there is some good drainage. But they're not picky, most of them.
Okay. So the Pringle's dwarf, nice small plant. I like the pine-like foliage on that one, a bold texture on that. The next one is an upright species, and this one is called Hicksii is the botanical species name on this. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, this is an upright yew. This is a true yew, a Taxus Hicksii, and it is really useful for screen purposes in shade. It can get up to 12, 15 feet tall. Yeah. Because it's true yew, it's a slow grower, but this is a smaller size, and they can be found larger. But they're useful as a screen plant in between properties or to cover a bare wall in a shady area.
And one thing I like about the Taxus forms of yew, in particular this plant, is you can shape these really, really well.
Yes. Yeah. You could keep that easily as a hedge, a 6-foot hedge. I think typically in the East Coast and things, you see that one used as a hedge. Or it could be let go. But yeah, they can be boxed into rectangles if you plant them.
And just about any form you want. There's some pretty fanciful shapes that I've seen with that particular plant. Right next to it is a really great-looking plant. This is a kind of pendulous yew, cascading form. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, this is the third yew we brought, and it's a Cephalotaxus. This is called a plum yew.
Okay.
It will produce when it matures, a plum-colored berry in late fall, winter. This form can actually get to, I think, 4 or 5 feet tall, but it spreads quite wide, up to 8 feet in width, and it makes a very useful taller ground cover or a nice plant in a raised bed or planter.
Will it cascade down a wall if it's planted along the edge of a wall, for example?
Yeah, it will. Yes, it will.
That sounds great.
It's great because it's deer-proof. It's one of the really proven deer deer-resistant yews. And there's also an upright form, but this is a nice spreading form.
Okay, well, those are three different plants that folks should consider, and it's always so hard to find dense evergreen foliage like that for the shade. So that's a particularly great thing. Now, behind that is a plant that I am really intrigued by, and I understand you have about a dozen different species of this in your nursery.
Yes.
This is Grevillea. Is that the right way to say that?
Grevillea. This is a variety called Bonfire, which is newer to the trade. In the past 5 or 6 years, there's been sort of an explosion of Australian plants in California and now into Texas and growers. This is an evergreen that kind of has a pine-like foliage. It has very beautiful pinkish red flowers in the winter. They bloom all winter, being a southern hemisphere plant. So from really late November through April, this will have flowers all over it. This particular variety is more compact than some of the other Grevilleas, which can get quite large, but most of them have very beautiful winter flowers. So typically a time when not much else is blooming, this is going to be kind of a star.
Yeah, and I can imagine the blooms on this plant, and love the form, and think it would be a terrific addition in the garden. Across the way, we have a new introduction, a relatively new introduction, I guess, in terms of the gardenias. This is a really compact little plant. I really like how tight this is and the structure of it. And it also, just looking at it here in the studio, looks more vigorous than most gardenias.
Yeah. I was surprised when this one came in too. We had ordered some in and was surprised by how small and skinny that leaf is. But there's also been a sort of newer wave of these cold hardy gardenias, which has always been the thing that's kept gardenias as a mainstay, I think, in Austin gardens because of winter protection. But these are quite cold hardy. This is just one of many varieties. This one's called Frostproof, and it will have nice, fragrant, white flowers, usually a few times a year, usually spring and fall, heaviest in spring.
Yeah, well, it looks like a vigorous plant, which to me, again, I think a lot of the gardenias are not particularly vigorous, and that one looks really nice. And I love the tight form and the fine texture on it. Behind it, we have the common name for this plant is willow's wattle, which is a tip-off, I think, that, again, Australian probably, wattle, that's what I think of. And what plant family is this one in? It's an acacia?
It's an acacia.
Right.
Yeah, okay. A Teophylla, and it is just beginning. These get pretty big. This will get to be a 6-8 foot tall and wide, kind of sprawling evergreen.
Absolutely beautiful.
That blue-green foliage really stands out against darker green leaves. This will also get flowers, yellow ball-shaped flowers like most acacias. And I believe this is sort of February, March in full sun.
Well, the form, the color of the foliage, and then again, imagining the color of the bloom, this looks like a standout. Again, on this one, I would imagine it to be one that perhaps might need to be protected in winter.
Yeah, it needs, as I say, a real full sun area, so you have to put it out a little bit in the open. But if it does get, I would say, down to the low 20s, I would protect it just by, covering it with a frost blanket.
Maybe on the
overnight.
south side of a house would be particularly good. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. I absolutely love that. I think we're going to skip to the pine that you've brought. This is one that has performed well in Austin for a long time, and for some reason it always keeps getting skipped over in terms of discussions. Everybody is always trying new pines in the Austin area, but this one I've seen established around town for a long time. It's Japanese black pine.
Yes, and this particular one is a dwarf variety called Thunderhead, which stays smaller. It's a 6-8 foot grower, and it ends up forming a nice kind of uneven ball-like shape, and will stay real evergreen. It really is one of the best pines for I think the Austin area, even though it is from Japan. It's not. It tolerates a wide range of soils. It establishes well in the ground. It's really better as a specimen in the ground than a container, but really, really pretty. It's called a black pine, but its characteristic feature is that the late growth in the fall will be white. It'll have a white needle coming out of each ball, and it's very, very pretty, silvery white.
Well, we have just enough time for a brief mention of another plant that you brought that looks absolutely outstanding, and this is called purple hopbush. And what I understand about this is that this is a vigorous plant for the shade, for screening in the shade, and it has a beautiful form.
Yeah, well, actually, this one will need partial sun. I don't think it could be in full shade, but say a half day of sun would be ideal, and it makes a nice loose kind of screen. Gets to about 10, 12 feet.
And has a kind of purplish color as well.
Yeah, this variety is called purpurea. It's Dodonea viscosa purpurea, and it will get very purple in the spring and early summer.
That's great. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up on that note, David. Thank you for bringing these plants along again, and our thanks to the folks at Gardens for shaking you free to come over here on Central Texas Garden. We hope people will visit you and peruse all the beautiful plants that you have. Always a special trip when you make it over to Gardens. So thanks for being here again. Coming up next is our friend Skip Richter.